The 8.4 notes focus on deep sea ecosystems. Now, most of the deep ocean is made up of what we call the abyssal zone, and this is a very smooth, flat, featureless area of the ocean floor, and it's at a depth of about 3,000 to 4,000 meters. As you can tell from this picture, it's extremely dark, so that means there's no primary productivity, but you can see animals there. Well, those animals that live in this area feed on what's called marine snow, which is the constant fall of sediment nutrients that are produced up in the shallows of the ocean and eventually sink down to these animals that feed on them. Now, the dominant organisms in this habitat would include echinoderms like brittle stars and crinoids, also known as feather stars, but also myofauna, and if you recall, those are the microscopic organisms such as worms and such that live within the sand grains. Now, there are some temporary ecosystems that form at these depths because of what we call whale falls. A whale fall is a place where a dead whale comes to rest on the deep ocean floor, and you can see a skeleton of one of these whales in this picture here. Now, this is an important temporary ecosystem because it provides a massive amount of nutrients in a very small area. And if we look at the pictures that just appeared on the bottom, you can actually over here clearly see a whale vertebrae over on the right. Here's the fin of a whale with a crab consuming some of the flesh. And this guy over here is interesting. This is a worm that is only found on the decaying skeletons of dead whales. And it's pretty interesting how it gets from whale to whale. Nobody knows, but it does only appear there. So quite an interesting discovery. Now, whale falls go through 3 distinct stages. The first stage, which lasts a few months, is the decay of the soft tissue. And this is where you'll see scavengers like hagfish and sharks come in and eat the flesh off of the bone. Now, within a few years, all the remaining soft tissue is kind of eaten away by smaller organisms, worms and crabs and such. And what can last even decades is the decay of the whale skeleton itself. And they've been finding a lot of chemosynthetic bacteria on the decaying skeleton, which again helps to promote a temporary ecosystem. So when we say this is temporary, it can last up to 10 or 20 years in length. Now, probably the most dynamic deep sea habitats are the hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. This is a very interesting discovery. We never knew about these things prior to 1977. These things are completely isolated from the sun, so their primary productivity relies exclusively on chemosynthesizing bacteria. So rather than using light to make sugar, they use chemical energy to make sugar. Hydrothermal vents are essentially underwater geysers, and they spew out super rich or super hot water with lots of minerals, and it helps to support a community of organisms. The chemosynthesizing bacteria actually consume hydrogen sulfide that is emitted in that really, really hot water. So if you look in that video that's on the screen, that white stuff you see at the top of the vent is all that bacteria. It's mats and mats of bacteria that are consuming this sulfide and using it to make sugar. And over here you can see there's other organisms that appear like tube worms. And one of the dominant organisms in the hydrothermal vents are giant tube worms called Riftia. But there's also big clams and other things. A lot of very unique animals and organisms live among hydrothermal vents. Now, cold seeps are slightly different. Same principle in that you have chemicals spewing up from the ocean, but it's not hot. They just slowly diffuse through the sediment where they are picked up by bacteria. And typically the chemosynthesizing bacteria consume methane in these parts to chemosynthesize. Cold seeps have been found to be dominated by mussels and also a smaller version of the giant tube worm that's found on hydrothermal vents.